Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to Ending Physician Overwhelm. We've all heard the phrase death by a thousand paper cuts, right? And the idea is that our lives are connected by these small moments of frustration over and over again. And it's rare for us to really recognize the emotional toll that takes. But just sit back for a minute and think about what are the little things that bother you over and over again? What is the impact of that on how you feel day to day? It's more significant than most of us would like to recognize because, of course, we walk around thinking, oh, I shouldn't be bothered by that. Or I should know how to manage that already. I should have already done that. These things make a big difference. And I want to talk today about how we can start to look at this and make some changes for ourselves. My husband and I were reflecting last night that we have just, over the last, I don't know, 5-ish days, just tackled a lot of projects. Kind of started on the Friday before Labor Day, and we just kind of stayed in momentum and we were just kind of checking things off the list. And there's a lot of satisfaction to be gained by that, but it wasn't actually super intentional, but I would say that there was a bit of a momentum piece, right? We tackled one project and then that led to another and to another and to another. And when you are having some successes like that, even little ones, but you're celebrating them, you're noticing them as you go, you want to stay in momentum, right? There is satisfaction in noticing and recognizing, oh, that's better. That looks better. That feels better. That works better. So let's dig into it a little bit today. What are the things that come up for you that you think are nagging little things that drag you down? I was trying to think, what is my list of nagging little things? And let's separate it for the sake of simplicity into things that are at work and in medicine and things that are in your home life. So at work, right? The dot phrases that are out of date, the template that you have that used to work well but no longer serves you. Is there a piece of equipment that is broken or works really poorly? Are there tasks that you find yourself doing repetitively over and over again, but they're cumbersome every single time that you do it? Or there's some kind of a systems error that you encounter. Now, some of these things are bigger deals than others, and some of them are way beyond you. If you are an employed physician and you work in a big clinic and there's some piece of equipment that's broken, you probably aren't going to be the person who can fix it, who can authorize someone else to fix it, right? That is something else that is going to need to happen. Similarly, you may request an update from IT, maybe for something that's going on in your electronic medical record, but you are probably not the one who's going to be able to actually fix it. Or if there's a broken process with the front desk or something. I don't want us to ignore the impact of those things. And I would say those things absolutely contribute to physician burnout. But for today, we're not going to focus on them because it's really external to us. And I think it can contribute to our lack of self efficacy. My goodness, I'm tripping over words here. Our lack of self efficacy and our sense that nothing ever gets better, right? If you are employed in a healthcare system and you're like, yep, that sounds true, right? Where it feels like nothing ever improves, nothing ever changes for the better, that your voice isn't listened to. We aren't going to feed into that today. We're going to think about the things that are within your control that affect you on a day to day basis that you want to make better. Let's look at dot phrases or something about your documentation. Now, I hope if you are listening today that you are using some kinds of support to help you with your documentation. Again, that might be templates and dot phrases and things like that that are pre-populated text that you can turn to. It might be a live scribe or an AI scribe, some kind of tool, because we cannot not be just sitting here and hand typing out detailed notes. Now, if you're listening and you say, oh, that's what I do every day, I don't use any templates, I don't use any scribe tools, I 100% do it on my own, and you don't have any problem, okay, good for you. That's great for you. I'm excited for you. You're probably not gonna love this episode, and you're probably not listening to me anyway. But for the rest of us humans, I hope that you are not doing that, that you're manually typing everything. And if you are manually typing or handwriting your notes, I can almost guarantee you that there is some nagging issue that you have with the tools that are available. If you are using an ancient electronic medical record that doesn't include any templating and you're not able to use any automatic phrases, that might be you, right? If you have tried using a scribe, AI or a live person scribe, and you hated the way that they did things, right? And so it was easier to you. You have felt a nagging sense of this wasn't good enough, right? And you let them go. Let's not abandon the helpful tools just because the first thing that you try didn't work. Again, that really bleeds into that conversation about big systems issues, lack of self-efficacy, that we feel like we're beating our head against the wall. We try something, it doesn't work, we don't like it, and we never try something again. We have to break out of that if we are going to be helping ourselves. Okay, tangent over. What are those things, though, that bother you day to day that are within your control? Again, is there a template or a dot phrase that you know you need to update, but you haven't done it yet? Is there something about your workflow that you know could be better, but you haven't changed it yet? And maybe you haven't even really thought about it yet. What is slowing you down? Think about it for a minute. And again, think about something that you have control over. If you work with a medical assistant or a nurse of some kind, and there's something in the workflow that you can improve, and you can connect with this human one on one, and you can set up a new system, that's going to take some time to do. It's still worth doing. If there's something about your own process that needs to be different, something that you need to update or let go of, what is that thing? Spend a little bit of time sort of thinking about it. Where do I get slowed down? After we recognize what that thing is, the next step is really appreciating the cost of not changing it. What happens when you go through your day to day and that thing is not fixed, not updated, not working, slow, clumsy, repetitive? There's the time cost. So I'm going to give you the example that recently I was noticing that what I was saying to patients out loud about COVID vaccines was not what was present in my pre-populated documentation. Now, I have control over that because I created my own templates. But you might have a dot phrase or something that you do that you could use similarly. I'm going to try and keep myself off the COVID vaccine tangent. But I noticed that what I was doing every time is I would say the words out loud to the patient, and then I would go to that pre-populated text that was out of date and incorrect, and I would sit and retype, right? It was time to update what was typed. But I had to come to the place of, yes, this is enough of a problem. It's happened often enough. It is time to update it. Because if I don't, every time that happened, which was multiple times a day, I'd be getting frustrated. This is slowing me. It's slowing me down. It's taking more time, right? Because I have to type it out. But also, I was annoyed that I hadn't fixed it yet. Okay. There is the emotional cost. So there's the time cost. There's the emotional cost. There might also be a safety cost. Now, I don't think that was true in this particular example, but we can all point to things that are outdated in our systems and our workflows that could lead to a safety example. Okay, not to belabor that too much. What are the repetitive tasks that you find yourself doing over and over again? And there's a reason why you're doing them over and over again. They're frequently occurring, but you're not making big changes and there's not anything that's highly customized. What are those things? And what is the system that could do it differently? And what is the cost in terms of time, in terms of emotions, of not making an update and a change? We need to raise some awareness around what is going on there. What else comes up? Piles of clutter, right? Some of the nagging tasks that we were able to complete is going through closets and clearing out clutter, right? That bothers us. There's an emotional part there too, right? When we are surrounded by physical clutter. Now, as I speak, my desk is a little bit cluttered, guys. I haven't gotten to that part yet. But being surrounded by physical clutter, whether at work or at home, is bothersome and emotionally draining, right? There are people who study such things, social scientists of various ilks. That is a known thing. So if you find yourself being frustrated by piles of stuff that are around you, all right, we need to make a change. Part of that is going to be cleaning up and tidying the pile, to be quite frankly, but part of it also is figuring out, is there a system? Is there a change that needs to happen so that this doesn't happen again next week, right? Again, that could be at work or at home, but what is the nagging project there? It's both the cleanup and trying to prevent it from happening again, right? So we need a system and we need a little time to address it. Really important stuff. Think about our to-do list. You know you have a variety of tasks and you write your lists. We're so good at making these lists of to-dos, right? If it's pertinent to someone else or there's a tight deadline, you might be better at addressing it. But those things that don't have a tight deadline, that are only for you, that you're not accountable to somebody else, how often does that get on the list over and over and over again and it never gets done, right? We are talking about tackling those things. Sometimes we have to look at that to-do list and decide, am I ever going to do this? Is it ever going to be important enough? If it is, we're going to need to set aside time to do it. That's just true. If we never set aside time to do it, which I'd say is the default state here, it's never going to get done, right? We won't magically have this period of time that opens up. We need to be able to look at the list and say, yep, that would be a great thing to do. I'm never going to do it. Can I get somebody else to do it? Maybe. Can I pay somebody else to do it? Maybe, right? What is the cost? What is the cost there? Time, emotion, money? Let's figure out how important it is to us and let's deal with it. What are the things that come up for you at home? What are the nagging issues that come up for you that are dragging you down or affecting you in some way? So this might be house projects. It might be clutter that's out there. Okay, again, we're looking at things that it might involve the task of the cleanup, but also a little bit of thinking about the systems. How do I keep this from happening again? How do I make it better? And what is the cost of not making a change here? When we're used to being stuck with these nagging issues, when we're used to being in this position of a lack of self-efficacy, right, and feeling like nothing gets better, it's very easy to just believe that this is the way things are, that there's nothing that we can do about it. And again, especially if you've been trying to tackle things at a big systems level, or I don't know, reading the news lately, it may feel very apparent to you that you cannot make an impact, but I promise you, you can. And part of our talking about these nagging projects, right, is that when we can accomplish things, when we can get some things done where we can notice and celebrate that they are done and the relief that comes in seeing something that looks cleaner and easier and noticing, oh, that's so much better than what was going on before. When we can really be attentive to those things, we can stay in the momentum of getting things done. As I mentioned last week on the episode, we finally got our new car. We had been looking at that for a while. We've been waiting for a specific time. That time sort of came and passed, but it sort of fell off the list. And although, right, there is a activation energy involved in buying a new car, uh, I'm so relieved it's done. I'm moving into this car. I'm figuring out all the tips and tricks as we were talking about last week. As we go, right, we learn and learn. And it feels really good to have that task done. Okay, now that's off the list. I don't have to think about that anymore. We tackled some garden projects. And, this is something that's been nagging my husband. Well, he was able to, kind of attack it. We went out and we got some new plants. He got some edging stuff. And he loves the way it looks, right? So he's no longer stuck thinking about it. There are other things around the house, right, that got sort of fixed and updated. Most of them were pretty small little projects, but it makes a difference. And in a time where it's very easy, both within medicine and again within the news, to get caught up in our perceived lack of efficacy, we can very easily think this isn't going to matter. It's not going to make a difference. It does make a difference. It makes a difference when we can see ourselves being effective, being successful, noticing what's helpful, noticing what works better, noticing perhaps that we've saved time or we feel less energy being drained. That helps us to develop a stronger sense of purpose that allows us to continue the work, continue to make improvements that help us or help our patients or our families, that allow us to set clear boundaries with people because we know how that makes a difference, to ask for help. One of the things that I think is so important that we recognize is how socialized we are to accept the status quo. This is especially true, I feel like, for women in medicine, because we are much more commonly under-resourced in terms of the help and support that we get. If you work in primary care, and you are used to doing pelvic exams without a chaperone when you know that your male colleagues have a chaperone. Now, the reason why they might have a nurse chaperone for a pelvic exam is not so they have extra hands on board, not so that they have someone who can help them with the sample tubes and labeling the samples. It is for, I don't know, safety and comfort issues, right? Having to do with gender and harassment and all of I'm not even going to go into that, right? But what functionally happens, right, when our male colleagues have a chaperone is they have an extra set of hands. They have an extra set of hands to make sure that the sample gets labeled, that it gets sent off with an order, that it gets put in the little basket, probably, taking the sample off to the lab or wherever it's going to go to be processed. They have extra hands there and they are used to that, again, for unrelated issues. This would come up in my prior work setting all the time that, I would be in a room very often doing procedures on my own, including colposcopy, IUD insertions, certainly pap smears and things, and there would be no chaperone, right? So if I needed something else, I had to unglove, get something, come back, reglove. Things were slower. When our male colleagues were doing those same procedures, there was always a chaperone in the room, again, an extra set of hands. The socialization that comes from internalizing that I don't deserve help is very real. And it makes a big difference in how you think about solving these kinds of problems because you think I have to do things on my own. I don't deserve help. I need to not ask for help because I get told no, and that doesn't feel good. right? There are lots of instances that we could point to where this occurs. And because women in medicine, although our numbers are much more equal, historically they have not been. And we have all experienced, being perceived not to be the physician or not to be the physician in charge or to be trainees or nurses or not as competent as our male colleagues just because of gender bias, let alone any, race or other ethnicity bias that, is likely also present if there is gender bias present. There are so many examples of that. And it is important that we see the through line of how that impacts our sense of self-efficacy. It impacts us because we are constantly internalizing not enoughness, this sense that we don't deserve help, the sense that we have to work harder than other people, the sense that we have to, be polite and, contribute cookies and be a team player in a way that our male colleagues are often not socialized in. Now, if you are listening to me and you are a male physician and you say, hey, I experienced some of that too, of course, it's not fully a gender issue. But I'm going to say that you automatically have more privilege than a woman physician in your place just because of gender norms. And you may not perceive that to be true. It is still true. I'm gonna stand up and say it from the mountaintops, right? These biases exist. They exist in the world in which we inhabit, and they exist within us because they have been internalized. How is that lack of effectiveness contributing to you perceiving that fixing these nagging little things doesn't make a difference? I would argue that it does. I hope that you can see for yourself how that does. When we start to pay attention to the things that are dragging us down, to the little energy drains that happen all day, every day, it's a minute here, it's 2 minutes there, it's, a little safety issue over here, it's a big safety issue over here. It's time and energy that you are spilling out that could very well be used for other things. We really want to reclaim that, but it takes us noticing what's going on, realizing the impact of not making a change, being willing to be uncomfortable, asking for help, setting boundaries, taking the time and energy to do it, to fix it, to believe that we are worth having things to be more streamlined, right? If you are trying to get someone else to help you, let's say you are working with a scribe, a live in-person scribe or a medical assistant, and you want them to be helping you, and what they are doing has not been helpful, it will take time and energy to teach them how to do it right, to coach for performance, to check and adjust. This feels really relevant to me at home because we are finally getting our kids to help uh, get their lunches all set up for school. Now, they have been grabbing their filled lunch containers filled by me and putting them in their lunch bags, but we are actually getting them to the point where they have to fill the actual lunch containers with food and be responsible for getting that into their lunch bag and then their backpack. And when they come home, they are responsible now for cleaning out said lunch containers and putting them away. I had to take a little moment with my husband and really acknowledge that this takes energy to do, because right now I am investing time and energy in making sure that they are, doing their lunches in the morning, that they are cleaning their containers, that their containers are being cleaned, that they are going to be ready for tomorrow, right? There is an activation energy there that we often want to avoid when we are talking about getting other people to do something that we have been doing, right? That is a top reason why we avoid doing it, because we know we can't just decide that someone else is going to do the task, throw them instructions, and then leave them to it. There's usually going to need to be some hands-on teaching, some coaching for performance, some check and adjust, some feedback. We have to sit in the discomfort of being willing to do that if we are going to give up or, give out another task to another human. What else? We need to be willing to spend a little bit of time addressing that issue. Now, you're looking at me and you're saying, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to sit down and fix these dot phrases. I don't have time to overhaul everything. I don't have time to, teach someone how to do what I do. Start small. I am very confident that you can find 10 to 15 minutes, even once a week, to sit down and update some things. I am also very confident that it could be even smaller than that. That when you have typed out something that you know that you type out over and over again, that you can take a moment to copy and paste that into a dot phrase, right? Into a repeated task. Something that you can do to make it easier. Is that going to work for every single thing that you do? Of course not. Is it doable for a lot of the things that we do? Absolutely. I am very confident that you can find little ways to do this. And if it's a little tiny thing like that, that you identify something that you have typed that you want to use that phrasing again. You're going to take a snippet, right? You're going to copy and paste that into a smart phrase. You're going to name it something, right? Taking the little bit of time to do that is an investment in yourself. Taking 10 to 15 minutes to do that once a week, to do it on a little bit more of a macro level is an investment in yourself. It's an investment in giving yourself time back. It's an investment in your emotional well-being because you won't have that frustration, that resentment, that annoyance, that nagging little thing is going on. And let's take some time to celebrate the wins because when we acknowledge that we've done something that's great, that's helpful, that looks better, that feels better, when we acknowledge that, right, we are celebrating ourselves. We are helping to see I am self-effective. I am awesome. I am capable. I deserve help, right? We are arguing for ourselves in that instance. And this is what I really want for you. My friends, I hope that this has been helpful for you today. I encourage you to sit down with yourself and figure out what are these things that are bothering me. If you don't have a ton of time, don't tackle the big things. And if all you can think of are the big systems issues, we have to look smaller. We have to look at something that you can do on your own where you can start to build momentum. These things might be at work, they might be at home, but all of these things are an investment in ourselves that makes such a big difference. I hope that this resonates with you. I'd love to hear from you and hear what your successes are. Until next time, my friends, take care.